Good morning, church, and welcome to Montview Boulevard Presbyterian Church Adult Faith Formation Series, Black History Series. Today, we will feature the great Madame Dr. Cleo Parker Robinson. She's here, let's give her a clap. And I have been tasked to introduce her. And so, got a chance to pick her up from my house this morning. But she was asking me, Malcolm, when did we meet? And I said, well, we met many years ago, but I vividly remember us in the Martin Luther King March going down Colfax Street. And she talked to me about Porky and Bess of Opera, Colorado. And she got me to come to the rehearsal and got me to sing in that opera with Porky and Bess. And from there, I sang with Opera Colorado and Faust. And so it was because of her I got the chance to sing with Opera Colorado. They probably would have never recognized me. Anyway, Cleo Parker Robinson is a cultural ambassador who founded the Cleo Parker Dance Company 50 years ago. She and her company have performed throughout Europe and Africa, and people of all ages and backgrounds have participated in her workshops and master classes worldwide. She has received numerous awards and honors, including the Kennedy Center Medal of Honor and an appointment by President Clinton to serve on the National Council of the Arts. I'm sure there's a whole lot more I can say. I asked her this morning on the way here, is there anything special you wanted me to say? And she just said, do your thing, Malcolm. So I'm not going to take up much time because we've already are behind time. But I'm so glad that she's here, and I want to welcome Dr. Cleo Parker Robinson. Please come.
Thank you. I got all kinds of goodies up here. Oh my, how fun. I don't know about you all, but I am absolutely thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. I can't believe it. First of all, Dr. Malcolm, thank you for inviting me. Thank you. I wanted to thank you for all of your work. He has been such a beautiful friend, and he said you have to come to my church. But he doesn't know I have been here several times. This is not my first time, but my first time in this chapel. So first of all, Dr. Malcolm, where did you go? Right there. Let's thank you. Yes. Well, I have all kinds of goodies up here. You all see that I did my coffee. I'm so embarrassed about that, but forgive me on that. I have to say, first of all, I'm always blessed to be in sacred spaces. Always blessed to be in sacred spaces. We are our best when we know where we are. And this is a sacred space. And I thank you. I've written lots of things. I write till about 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I show up and I go, oh my God, what did I write? So it's not, but I always have to feel where I am. And I trust that more than what I felt the day before. But what I want you to know is that I believe that our indigenous families whose land we stand on, we have not been good enough. We have not been good enough. And I think about goodness, and how did we miss the boat on that? How did we miss the boat with taking land and taking culture and taking a way of life and not understanding how painful that is? So I think this morning I woke up with that awareness, and that awareness to saying, let us just ask for forgiveness all the times. And then let us be grateful that we can remember. And let us see if we can ask the ancestors, all of our ancestors, to be present. All of our ancestors. Some that we know and some that we don't know. And I woke this morning thinking about my mother and father and how brave they were to have a family in Denver. And we were not like a 4th and 5th generation, like many of the generations that Yesterday I had a chance to meet with some of my friends from Cherry Creek. And I went, wow, I never think about Cherry Creek. I think about Park Hill, right? Who thinks about Cherry Creek? I don't think. I thought about Cherry Creek for a long time, and I think about 5 Points. I think about Park Hill, but Cherry Creek had a very different moment for me yesterday because I was with people who really had a longer history than myself. And yet I had a history, but a very short history. And mine was a little more painful than their history. And so I think sometimes when things are painful, we just kind of move them aside and go, well, I can get through this. And yes, we do, but do we really? And so I think giving ourselves space in sacred spaces to discover some of the things. When I was in the ladies' room, which is the most important room in the house, I must say, we get so much done. We speak to each other and we bond. And I met Malcolm X's wife, Betty Shabazz, in the ladies' room. And it was really fun that I met her in the ladies' room. And I just have to say, Malcolm reminds me of Malcolm X. And my son Malik reminds me of Malcolm X. And yet, I feel as though I've been guided more by Dr. Martin Luther King. But they were both important. They were both important in our culture. I did get to see Dr. King here. And I stood in long lines, it didn't matter how many days, as long as we could hear him speak. And that was a powerful moment. But hearing him speak was really something, because it was like his words were vibrations that stayed in your soul. It was really an extraordinary moment, really something. And to be able to be in that number, be in line, and to come into this wonderful chapel, the larger one, and to hear him speak, stayed with my family and my father and mother. And they were just extraordinary. Father being black and my mother white, and coming to Denver from, Daddy was Texarkana, Arkansas. Mama was San Diego. Mama lived on the beach in La Jolla. And she had not really dealt with what racism was all about. She didn't even really understand it. Didn't understand why people even had racial problems. Said, well, I don't understand it, Mama said. Daddy said, well, I'll give you an education. So he was the professor, how to erase racism. And so I grew up in that. And I feel really grateful. So I brought their photograph. I don't know, where's Mom and Daddy? When I was going out the door yesterday, I'd never taken a photograph out. And I just wanted you to kind of share in their spirit, in their ancestral spirit. They were just wonderful. They were both musicians. And they met at DU. They met at Denver University. And Mama's Martha May Parker. She was a Roberts. And Daddy was Jonathan Waylon Parker, and they called him JP. And someone thought this morning that my father worked here. And I said, no, my father never worked here at the church. But my father-in-law did, and he was a janitor. He took care of this church. It's really wonderful. I mean, he really took care of it. That was his pride and joy. And that's wonderful, because we never think about who else makes anything happen. We really don't. We think about maybe our circles, but not all the circles that surround the circle. So I thought about, he not only took care of the church, but he lived right next door, so he could be here 24/7. And my father was a janitor, but not of this church. He was a janitor and of the Bonfils Theater, and he loved the theater. So here we are. When I think about Cherry Creek, I think about all of the things I heard about GW and Hill Junior High, that everybody's daddy was a doctor or a lawyer. And my daddy was neither. And I thought, how do you become something? Like Daddy would say, I want you to make something of yourself. Well, something of yourself was not going to be a dancer. He'd say, all black folks can dance, sugar, so what are you going to do? And I was like, that is not true. I'm going to tell you that. All black folks do not dance. But it was funny because he came out of the South, and he felt like I didn't understand what was in his head about what it was to become successful. And it was really, really not just a title of what your job is going to be, but how did you serve people? How do we serve each other? And that's what I learned from both of them. And even how do you serve them in good times, but how do you serve them in the bad times? And we had a lot of bad times. So I thought about that yesterday. I thought, well, nobody comes together to hear about bad times. So today I'm going to talk about good times, mostly. But we had times that were, I think when we think about our lives, it's all the time, rather than good or bad, putting the value to it. I think we have a life, and it has a journey. And thank God we get to live long enough to think about the whole journey. I was born in Denver and in 5 Points and at the Rawsonia. So in a club, you know, I got to be born in jazz. So I think I'm wild. And I don't take responsibility. I was born in jazz. Our apartment was above the club. The Rawsonia Club was on the bottom. Now I hear Duke Ellington came to this church as well. And I think that is fabulous because Duke Ellington has been with me a long time in spirit. You know, they tell me what took place at the Rawsonia. When you're born, I'm going to tell you, I did this, I did that. I was born there. I can't tell you anything other than what it feels like, the spirit of it, the spirit. So the spirit of it is that I was born into this jazz. Jazz is about improvisation. It's about how do you move through times that are extraordinary, but how do you move through times that are not? I think we're entering times that are not. And I'm concerned about our elders, because I am an elder. And Social Security and all of the Medicare and all the things but I'm concerned about the young people, because I don't think they have the tools that we have, because we've been through many, many things, the tools to get through this time. I think that's my responsibility right now, is to help young people get through the time. So guess how I get through it? Can you only imagine? I dance through it. I get down and I go, come on, y'all. And they go, oh, how old is she? And I don't even care that they talk about me. I do not even care. I don't care. I have no pride in that. Because then I can't walk afterwards, right? I'll be cute for about 5 minutes. And then, but I learned a lot about everything of the journey. So born in this club, the only black club, but also, what's interesting is that it was the only hotel for blacks. Can you imagine? Because it was the Jim Crow laws. So I pay attention to law. I'm a dancer who pays attention to law because I was born where laws dictated where we lived, where we prayed, where we got educated or not, where we ate or didn't. It was important to know that law did not allow you to go down that street. And I'm like, excuse me, what? So Colfax was the dividing line, and we could not cross it. However, we broke all the rules. we broke rules. So I also learned about law, and I also learned about breaking the rules. So I think living in the Rawsonia with my mother as the only white that lived there, it was an extraordinary experience for her. So we always talk about my daddy because he was way cool. My mother was way cool too, but we don't talk about her so much. But we don't know what she had to go through to be in a community that was not necessarily hers, but became hers. It was an extraordinary thing. She was disowned by her father and her family, so she didn't really have a family to depend upon. So we created family. And that's everywhere we went. We created family. So I never felt like I didn't have a family, but it was always that creative process of opening your heart so that you can be accepted. Mama wasn't really a dancer, but later, I learned later, she did yoga, and she was a French horn player. She was a musician with the San Diego Symphony, like at 12. But her father did not want her to be a musician. So she practiced in the attic with a pillow in her French horn. He said that was the worst sound he ever heard in his life. So she created an extraordinary ear for music. So whenever I worked with the symphony, which I did for 50 some odd years, she would sit in the house and go, that's an E flat. That is not an E. That's a B flat. And she could hear it really carefully. And I'm going, Mama, I don't hear it. I can feel it, but I cannot. So she was extraordinary in helping me understand the structure of music. But Daddy was wonderful to let me know there is no structure. You create the structure. So it was kind of cool being with this symphonic music in the morning and jazz at night. And jazz all through the night, getting ready for the symphony and symphonic and classical music for morning. And that's just a metaphor. So living in these two worlds, we found that there were more than just two worlds. There were a whole lot of worlds. And how to move in and out of these worlds was fantastic. So living in the Rossinian with the jazz, and with Duke Ellington coming, Count Basie coming, Ella Fitzgerald coming, Billie Holiday coming, and Charlie Burrell, now 104, by the way. I walked into the Dazzles and I saw him and he goes, "Sugar, I brought you home from the hospital." And I said, "You're lying." You know, with that cigar and everything. And so when he announced it when we were with the symphony, I think I was doing Carmen. And not only was I doing Carmen, I was dancing Carmen. Very seldom do I direct and dance at the same time. I was working with Nat Merrill, and I remember when his wife died, who was wonderful, she was an extraordinary pianist, I came and was sitting at the LA or the Buell, I think, and I saw Nat come in, and I said, "Nat, I heard Louis passed," and I was so sad when I saw him, and I said, "Is there anything I can do?" The lights were going down, and Tom and I were together, and he said, "You can dance Carmen." I said, "What?" That's what he said to me. I said, "Tom, did you hear what Nat Merrill just said?" He said, "I think he was sort of serious." So I met with him like in a week, and I said, "Nat, maybe you were under duress or something." He said, "No, I want you to direct, I want you to choreograph and dance Carmen." So I remember being with the symphony that night to close it, and it was Charlie Burrell's 50th year with the symphony. Now remember, Charlie could do classical, and he could do jazz, and he could do anything. He could play the world, and he did. But bringing me home from the hospital was sort of symbolic, but I didn't know about it. So you never know when you're going to find out about your life. So in Betcher Hall, he goes up and he's taking this bow. He says, "This is my 50th year, my last year, and I just want to tell you one thing. The thing that makes me proudest is I brought that one home from the hospital." And I'm standing on stage going, "What?" I mean, really, I couldn't believe it. I go home and I go, "Daddy, wait, Mama, Dad, tell me, how did Charlie Burrell bring me home from the hospital?" And he said, "Because I hate hospitals," Daddy said, "and I was working 3 jobs, and I couldn't afford," he said, "you were just born, I couldn't afford not to work, couldn't afford to be gone. I would lose my job. And Charlie was my best friend, and he would bring you home from the hospital." So I was born in love. So love is the key. That's all I can say. You know it better. Any one of you could stand here and tell your stories. And I think we're going to come up with the same denominator. It's about love. Can we say it for a moment? Wait, I brought my girlfriend. I had to run and get her. She's quite tired. She's been all over the world with me. And I really did. I said, Malcolm, don't come and get me. I have to go to the studio. I have to go get her. And so please stand for a minute. Just kind of, please turn that off. Please stand and just welcome the person. Even if you welcome them in a way that you have not welcomed them before. The front and the back and the all over. Just welcome them. Hey, 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 hey.
I'm here. What about y'all dance? Naughty great fun.
Oh, I have to have a little libation. So you all look good to me. I didn't know how good you look. And you feel good. It's not just how we look, but how do we feel? So what do we do to feel good? Don't turn on the news. Don't do that. We're going to have to take the drum like we did early and get our communication, because it's all going to shift anyway, you know. You won't know what you're seeing or hearing or feeling, and you'll go in a place of no trust. But trust yourselves. Trust your heart. Trust your mind. Trust your spirit. Trust those around you who love you. Trust, trust, trust. Don't go in a place of fear. It's set up for us to be in fear, because I've been in fear. I know what that's like. And fear will kill you. Don't worry about anybody else. Fear will take your body. So when I lived in Denver, I went to Dallas at the age of 10. Mother. Well, even before then, I have to say, what was cool about Denver before I left, and it shifted my life forever, but is that we had people from all over. It was like Curtis Park area. And they slipped Mama through the back door. We lived with the doctor, the dentist, the famous dentist that lived there. And his wife said it was all right to bring Mama up the back, because it was against the law. So we couldn't just bring her into the hotel. She had to slip in, and she didn't look like me, like a mix. She was definitely white. You know, whatever that is. However, I call myself black when I'm around the country, you're not black. I go, yes, I am. So this construct of race is very nonsensical. We've created it. How do we undo it? It's a little bit difficult now. Created it for so long. So what I experienced about the music was that it was also about social change and justice. Social change and justice. Can y'all say that? Social change. No, y'all didn't do it like me. Let me show you how to do it. Here we go. Hands together. Hands together. Social change and justice. Social change and And if you were standing, you get to get the hips moving. Social change and a justice. Social change and a justice. Social change and justice. And I just created, I like that way y'all were moving. I'll show you. Okay, I'll show you. Okay. Let me watch it one more time. Here we go, one more time before I get to another moment. Social change and a justice. Hey! And I was about to have you compete like this side was feeling a little bit bigger and more committed than this side. And then I went, no competition up in here. No, we don't have to do that. I think we're all thinking about competition. I'm in dance, and so we dance all over the world, right? And it's very, very, let me just tell you about this. I don't believe in competition. I audition all over the world, and it's the hardest thing to do because I'm judging them. And they've come from afar, and they've spent their money and their time and their energy to hear, you're not good enough. I hate that. I don't do it. I tell them you all are beautiful. You're absolutely all beautiful. And if I had a position, you'd all be right there. Right there. Because there's nobody like you. There's no one like you. You can't compete with another human being. You absolutely cannot. You really are original, and you hear it all the time. You really are authentic, and you hear it all the time, but do you believe it? Faith, where's your faith? You would not treat another individual in any other way other lovingly if you really believed it, because there's no competition. You don't have to compete. So the dance is competing. So I have 500 people in a room, 600 people in a room. You go, 1,000 people came to audition. And so what is it about the ego? It really is not good that we have to feed our egos by numbers. I tell them, whether you get this job or not, what did you learn in the process? And it's about life too. Whether you get what you asked for or not, what did we learn in the process about ourselves and somebody else? Because sometimes we've set up our life the way we think it should be. My parents did. They thought, they wanted me to be successful, so I wanted to be a doctor. So I thought, okay, I will be a doctor. I did everything. I studied Latin, I studied math. Do you know how boring that was for me? Do you understand it? I mean, really, I love Latin. Latin was cool. It's the basis for all, languages, they say. I couldn't use it. I would work in a hospital, and I would want the patient to move over and so I could get in because it was so painful for me to watch them be in their pain. So I knew that wasn't my place. No matter how we were setting it up, I felt healing was important, though. Healing is very important. But how do we do healing? I'm very, very interested in how we heal. So I've been with healers around the world. Healers. And some we question because we think only healing should happen in a certain way. So one year I did, with all these kids auditioning from around the country and all around the world, I brought them to Denver. And it was the International Association of Blacks. And we created it in Philadelphia, right? And we created it in Philly. I didn't know this Philadelphia connection with Malcolm until this morning. Like, what do you mean you're in Philadelphia with the Eagles and all that good stuff? They like to be so proud. They were amazing. And what did you think about the halftime entertainment? Okay, fine. So, oh, woo, we'd be here all day. So, I just thought about this, but we created the International Association of Blacks in Dance. So what does that really mean? Okay, it's international, it's dance, it's blacks. Does that mean only black people come? Does that mean only black people dance? Does that mean if you're really dark, if you came from the motherland? It's very confusing. Absolutely, but we did it, and we've done it almost 40 years. So I worked with a Dr. Harvey Milkman. I was interested in then psychology once I realized that working in a hospital, which I started doing when I was about 12, as a candy stripe or something, just so I could be in the environment of a hospital. Because at the age of 10, I lived in a hospital in Dallas, and I almost died of, I almost died of, let's see. I'm not sure as I begin to think about it. And the children, there are a lot of kids who come to me and go, I played you at my school today. I played you at school. And I almost died at 10. And I go, yes, I did. Yes, thank you very much. They always remind me, right? My mother says, that's not important, Cleo, that from 10 to 12, you almost died. And I said, I know, but everybody seems to connect to it, so I better talk about it. So I had to analyze it. She said, so many things have happened in your life. Why do you talk about that time? And I go, well, Mama, when we went to the South, we were in a station wagon, and I was in the front, and my 3 brothers and sisters were in the back, and we were without my father. And I was the first child. I was very connected to my father because he wanted to be a doctor. And he had to raise a family, and so he couldn't do it. So I was the first child to carry his dream. So many times we're carrying our family's dreams. And I want us to make sure that we can carry them, but we can carry them in our own way. And I think that God gave me the blessing to be able to do that, to carry their blessings in my own way. And I had to discover that, and I had to fight for it. Because if you were dancing, you were going to hell. You knew that for sure. So I was like this, but that, I don't know about that. I don't know about heaven, I don't know about hell. But I learned about it at the age of 10. So I went to an all-black Catholic school with all white nuns. How about that? They were what? They were beating us, I tell you. Holy folks were hitting you all the time. I said, okay, now that didn't make sense to me. But it was the church, and so we accepted it. And I was on my knees, and that's why they're so bad today. I am genuflect. Stayed on your knees praying all the time, I did. And I was going to become a nun. I decided that was cool because they had power. The nuns had power. I'm going to have power like the nuns. And so, but I realized that they were sort of weird because I thought nuns didn't have underwear. When they hung their underwear, I was like, oh my God. I just didn't understand it. I mean, if they came from God, they shouldn't even have to wear underwear. I really couldn't figure that part out. So anyway, my grandfather was a missionary, and he and my grandmother pretty much ran the church. And I used to say it was Baptist. My grandmother was very angry. She said it was Methodist. I said, it felt like Baptist to me, Mama. But that's all right, doesn't matter. Catholic in the day and Methodist at night. Baptist. So, because they shouted like Baptist folks do. They did all the stuff that I felt, we'd get happy and people would getting slapped down and somebody got happy and I'm like, oh my God, she's out of her body. So I knew what it was like to be out of your body very early, spiritually. That was deep. So being in the church was we went to church. We went to church on Sunday 3 times. I'm dying right. Not twice, but about 3 times. We had to go to choir rehearsal. We had, but then we went on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We went every day. We were in church all the time. So that was a powerful thing. But the church would talk about the Catholics. I was like this. You sending me to Catholic school, but you're talking about the nuns? So I knew there was this division. And we knew, my mother being white, living in the South, we had to hide her. So I knew about the Holocaust already. I didn't have to be out of this country to know about the Holocaust in a particular way. Hiding her and not being honest just to survive was really something. So we just tell a little bit of lies, tiny lies, not big lies, but a little bit, fudge it a little bit. So Mama was in the car with my grandmother. My grandmother was black, but she was light-skinned. And some people thought she was white because she later white hair, but people in the community knew she was black. They knew her. Mama sang in the choir. She was the only white in the choir. I'd be like, listen to the choir, and they'd be like this, and I go, the white one is my mama. Oh, that was kind of interesting. But she was courageous and she was welcomed. She was welcomed. That spirit, that was deep. And so the black community took a great chance to have her publicly in the choir, especially when we had to hide her. So driving, Mama Cleo would say, if you get stopped by the sheriff, this is what you have to say. That Mama was, my grandmother was her domestic and that she was working for her. And we had to take her home. And that's why they're in the car together. This grandma is not our domestic, that's our grandma. I was named after her, Mama Cleo. She said, don't ask any questions, just do what is asked of you. So you learned how to do what you had to do. So that was powerful, But trying to be halfway intelligent as a child, when I had to drink water out of the colored fountain, my mama drank out of the white fountain, I then was very upset that my water was not colored. I'm still looking for colored water. So if it's going to discriminate, it should make some sense, right? What we learned and what I learned early is that it didn't make any sense. So I had to make sense myself. But I think I had to go through a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional transformation in order for that to happen. And I was a kid who loved to play. I was the oldest of 4. Everybody was 2 years different, but everybody looked to me for, okay, what game are we gonna play? But we lived in the Port District in Dallas. So there was a lot of poverty, a lot of illness, incest, lynching. I learned lots of things very early. I saw lots of things very early. What does a child do with that information? One doesn't speak. So I became mute after this happened. So one morning I woke up and I was very full. My kidneys had shut down and I I was rushed to the hospital. My mother looked at me and she said, "What's wrong, Cleo? What is wrong?" And my body was just not the same body. And they rushed me to the hospital, and they didn't know which one to take me to because of the segregated hospitals. So we hear these things, but we don't really know what they do to you. You don't know what it really does to you. So here's my mother, her first child. She's like, "I don't know what to do." And they said, "But you can't do anything until we can figure this part out. Where do we take her?" If you go to a white hospital, my grandparents being black, they could not go in. And if we go to a white hospital, so it was really that kind of complicated moment. But by the time I do get admitted into St. Anthony's, my heart shuts down and I have a heart attack. By then, all I remember is something really glorious, actually, really glorious. I no longer felt any pain whatsoever, not a bit. And I felt as though I had transitioned, and they pronounced me, gone. And my grandparents were there praying like mad. And all I know is that there was, I don't know, the priests are very interesting. The priest got there, and he was white. I was like this segregated hospital, but the priest can get in here. Now that he got a good pass. He was in there. All I remember is making a transition and then having a conversation about whether or not I wanted to be here or not. And so it's sort of that commitment, that agreement with God. And then I thought I really met God because there was the priest. He was white. I knew God was white. All the photos I had seen, he was white. I just knew I had made it to heaven. So I knew it. So I kissed him. I was like, I'm kissing the priest. I'm right here, slobbering. And so I had my white rosary, I remember, and thought I had really, really made it. But what I saw more than anything is extraordinary white light and bliss with no challenges whatsoever, no conflict. There's no conflict between people, no conflict with the earth, no conflict whatsoever. I dug that. I was like, I'm staying. If they prayed me back really hard. Prayer is really powerful. God even had to say, "Oh, Lord, have mercy." The grandparents really wanted me here, so I stayed. But the actual happened is this. They said that I would never walk, that I would be bedridden. And I think that was my contract then. Then I will then move. So I think it was all about movement, to keep moving. And I think it was then about how do we move, and what is our intention. And I think my intention has always been, how do we move to bring people together so that everyone feels a little bit of heaven on earth, a little bit of that. So I just think that I've been very fortunate to have a school and a group of people around me every day that believe in bringing people together, no matter who they are, where they come from, and what they look like. And I wanted to create a space that was sort of like a little bit of paradise, whatever. I don't want to be in purgatory. I don't want to be in the middle. I want to be in a place where there's real joy. And I think you all have created this space here. And I am so grateful to be here. And I want to invite you to our church. I mean, our church is Shorter AME Church, and it was the first, well, I say the first black church. I'm not so sure. But it is the church that was burnt by the Klan and rebuilt in the 1925, by the black community in 1 year. And I've been in the church. I took over the church with my husband about 40 years ago, almost 40. And we've been building in that church ever since. And we have people who've been taking classes, thank you, Eddie, studying and taking and dancing with the stars and bringing their spirit into that church, igniting that sense of kindness and love and generosity. And I just think that we have so much work to do, except if we think about it, we're not working, we are playing. So thank you for letting me play with you this morning. Thank you for letting me play with you. Ah, thank you, brother.
You want to say a few things?
Yes, yes, yes. Oh! Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. Oh, my goodness.
You want to say a few things about that?
Oh, I brought all kinds of goodies.
and then we're gonna-
I never did this, but I love you all. Standing and carrying on, knowing you've been in the church service already and you got another one after this. But I have to tell you this. I brought my Kennedy Center Medal for the Arts. It was an extraordinary moment for me to get the medal. And I got it because I did the work of great artists. It wasn't me. I feel like I'm a symbol. I'm merely a symbol because I bring people that I want to be in this community. And when they come, I say, I don't have any money and I don't, blah, 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 blah. And I said, but I love you and I want you to be here. And you will love Denver and Denver will love you. And they come. And I think one of the artists I brought was Katherine Dunham, the great Katherine Dunham. And she was amazing. And I worked with her all the way up until her passing. And when I got the Kennedy Center for the Arts, it was the work that I've done with Katherine Dunham and many of the other great artists. And I went to see Katherine Dunham. She came to the rehearsal the day of the Kennedy Center when I got the award, but she didn't get there that night when we got the award. So I went to her the next day and I said, Miss Dunham, you weren't there to receive your medal. And she said, I've already gotten one. She already had one. She said, but this one was for you and your work, even though I was doing the work of Katherine Dunham. And because she was the first cultural anthropologist, and she inspired me to change the rules in Brazil about racism, and in East St. Louis about racism. And so the dance has been about justice, and she reminded me that that's what we have to do, that the fight is even greater. But if we don't feel like we're fighting, just feel like we're sharing the most powerful thing, and that is the love of what we do. And I love you all, and I thank you. And my Tom Robinson, I thank you. I hadn't seen this, but Beth brought this to me. Where's Beth? She brought this to me this morning. There you are. Honey, and Tom Robinson, I met at 12, right when I came from Dallas, and that's when I was mute. And Tom Robinson came into my life, and I was at People's Presbyterian. That's where I went to church at that time, coming from the Catholic and the Methodist and the Baptist. I then was Presbyterian, I want you to know. So, love you all. I thank you. And this has been an honor for me to be with you today.
Before we open it up for questioning, she was honored yesterday in Cherry Creek for the legacy of Cherry Creek growing up black in Denver, transforming neighborhood. That was just yesterday. And I want to remind you that the Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Center for Healing Arts saved the date for this new fantastic, grand opening celebration, yes. January the 16th to the 18th, 2026. Grand opening. This is a new building. And the other thing is the International Summer Dance Institute, this July 7th through the 18th, 2025, ages 9 through 13. And then she has the pre-pro professional intensive, July the 7th to the 25th, 2025, age 13. So I want to make those announcements. And then the other thing is we want to open it up right now for you to ask Madame Cleo any questions you may have.
Any questions or any comments or anything? Yes.
Cleo, just from your talking and from knowing you, I know you're a very spiritual and spiritually led person. Could you, and has anyone not been to one of her productions? Well, let me tell you, you need to go because you will feel the spirituality, and that's what I wanted you to just touch on about the spirituality, because each one of your productions, you can tell, and you can feel the spirituality.
Oh, yes, honey. Diane, thank you. The judge. Everybody has to behave. Everybody has to behave, honey. I love it. And you know she's a dancer. She always said, Cleo, I want to dance with you. I want to dance with you. And she finally she finally did, and I love it. She's a dancer at heart. And her family, I thank you. I thank you, sweetheart. Yes, I think, so I started dancing, creating movement. My first choreography was called Spiritual Suite. So the spirituality of being in any home, any house that's sacred, anywhere, all over the world I've been in sacred spaces, whether they are Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, Catholic, mosques, synagogues, it doesn't matter. I am in a place of sacred worship, and I love to be in the ritual, whether I'm in a ceremony with the Native Americans with drumming and moving. It doesn't matter. It's all the same to me. It's all the same. But one thing that influenced me the most was being in Dallas and the power of the music. And so I created a piece called To My Father's House. Come and go with me to my father's house, to my father's house. Come and go with me to my father's house, to my father's house. There'll be no crying there. There'll be no dying there. Come and go with me to my father's house, to my father's house. Yeah. So I would, and it was so funny because I would be in church and I'd be like, then I would start moving. My grandma would say, if you do not cross your legs and stop snapping your fingers and don't move your booty, you have to stay still. And I'm thinking, are you kidding? Are you kidding? And you're playing that music? That's evil. So I had to create my own church. And my own church is inside. And so To My Father's House is the first thing. Then I did Mary, Don't You Weep. So I just want you to know, I've been with the Marys all night long, thinking about Mary, the Marys at the cross. That was my first piece. So the building will have Latin notation in the entire front of the building, as with the new building is designed by Kurt Fentress, who designed our airport, who's been working with us for years to create this building. There will be Latin notation of my spiritual suite in the front of the building of my Mary, Don't You Weep. Is that deep? I love that part. I love that part. That's Kurt Fentress. Don't you love that? Okay, sorry, you had another question, but y'all have to know that. Come and see that. Yes.
Yes, good morning. It is such an honor to be here to actually see you instead of just seeing you on television. I love everything that you've done here in Colorado and just all over the world. So many people know who you are. Cleo Parker Robinson, you are a jewel.
Thank you.
And I love dance. The first time that I was introduced to dance, I actually grew up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh.
And I remember Alvin Ailey
Sure.
Dance Theater. They came to my school. And I just wanted to know, did you know him at all? Did you have a chance to meet him or dance with him before he passed away?
Lord, salute to you. What is your name again?
Ebony Collins.
Ebony, honey, thank you. Well, Alvin was my inspiration to start the company. Thank you very much. So I went to New York at 19 with a great teacher, Rita Berger. Rita was my teacher. She was at the Colorado Women's College where my father was. My father went from being the janitor at the Bonfils Theater to being the first black actor, then a director, then a lighting designer, then the head of the Women's College, and he created an all-woman tech crew that we took around the world so that men would know that women knew how to do tech too. It was very important. So we went all over, and we grew that out of Colorado Women's College. But what was wonderful is that at the college, as a freshman, Rita knew she came from the Met. She was a ballet dancer with George Balanchine. That's how I started. And she was a ballet dancer, and I studied ballet, of course. You cannot dance without studying ballet. But it was not my spirit. And when I walked in the room, I didn't see anybody looking like me. And Colleen, thank you, honey. She's now on our staff. And she came from Colorado Ballet, now working with us. But when you walk in, and I love Laurel for being with me, she's also with us. My new staff, stand. I asked them to be here. They've only been with me a month. Come on, stand up. I love it. I love it. They're like, what are we doing on Sunday? We work 9 to 4 on Monday through Friday. So what are we doing on Sunday? I love you all. Okay, so going to New York at 19, I then began to study dance therapy. Because once I decided not the doctor, I had psychiatrists that I worked with. I was publishing, very young, writing about the mind and the body and the spirit and how it connects. And I was working with a child psychologist, and Dr. John Love, I was his protege. But I love psychology, but I love music, and I love dance, and so I created all of that madness with the grace of God, you know. But I then was told by Rita that in making my decision about what I wanted to be and do, I need to go to New York, and I needed to meet Alvin Ailey and Arthur Mitchell. Now, I studied all of the great artists. I studied all of them. We had to. Studied all the great music. Shostakovich and Beethoven and Bach and everybody. We studied it all, right? But I had to find out where my spirit really was. So I go to New York, following my husband who was playing at Madison Square Garden. Tom Robinson was an athlete. And I told my mother, Mama, he needs me to help him drive to New York. He needs me. So I go to New York and I drop him off at Madison Square Garden, and I am at dance studio at Alvin Ailey's. And I found my dream right there. I found my dream right there in the ladies' room. Hello. In the ladies' room, because what I loved is that women were in the bathroom and they were speaking all these different languages. I said, they think I'm from Denver. I'm gonna learn. I'm not gonna be from a cow town. I'm gonna be all sophisticated. You know, I loved it because the languages of the world were there. And that's what I loved. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Don't all speak at the same time. Anyone?
So I'm going to teach an Ailey camp. So I just came from New York at the Whitney Museum. And go online if you can and see this exhibit. It's one of the most extraordinary exhibits I've ever seen, although Arthur Mitchell had a great exhibit. So just want to leave you with this, is that we don't know who the next Arthur Mitchell is, or Alvin Ailey, or Judith Jamison, or Catherine Dunham, or Martha Graham, or we don't know, but we have to invest in these kids like I was invested in. I had lots of challenges, physically, mentally, spiritually. People didn't give up on me. They didn't give up on me. We cannot give up on each other, and we cannot give up on our young ones, even if they have challenges and we don't understand it, because there's going to be a lot that we won't understand. So we have to slow down and just bring them to the theater. Bring them to let them find the music. Wherever the music of the dance will take them, they don't have to be dancers. I've worked with kids with all kinds of disabilities where if they're blind or if they're without an arm or they're, it doesn't matter. Whatever their challenges are, it doesn't matter. They are living, breathing, creative, marvelous human beings. And they need to be loved. They need to be in loving spaces. And so when we have our concert in May, it'll be Mother's Day, and I'm going to do an excerpt from Mary Lou's Mass. And Mary Lou Williams wrote this wonderful Mass, and I did it 25 years ago, and I woke up saying I want to do it again. Because Mary Lou Williams was a jazz composer, one of the finest jazz composers, but she was commissioned by the Pope to do this Mass. And when Alvin Ailey was with Mary Lou Williams, she was commissioned to compose this for Alvin by the Pope in Italy, which I was able to go and be there and watch him in his Pope-mobile. That's a very cool thing when it's moving around you like that. But what I found out is this, is that Father Peter O'Brien asked me after Porgy and Bess, it was Porgy and Bess right then, as soon as I finished directing it and choreographing it and working with this brilliant genius man, I was wiped out and I didn't want to do anything, nothing. I didn't want to see anybody, I didn't want to be anywhere. And Father Peter O'Brien comes to Denver and asks for a meeting. And I said, I'm not meeting with anyone because I don't have any brains or body or anything. I'm spent. Just when you think you're spent, God gives you one more little ditty, one more little ditty, one more ditty, right when you think you can't have one more anything. And Father comes, and I've never met him. He came out of New York, and he said, well, I must meet with Cleo and Lay. I met with him, and he said, I am Mary Lou Williams' priest, and you have got to complete Mary Lou Williams' Mass, and Alvin only did 4 of the Masses, four pieces in the Mass. So I took on choreographing all of it, and my dancers left me in Italy. They left me. 7 of my dancers left me. Even though I'm taking them around the world, they, at this great dinner in Italy, they say, I'm going to go to the Wiz, I'm going to go to New York, and they left me, and I'm like, you left me. And I did it with dancers that I did not even know. They were not my dancers. I had to choreograph them on people that I did not even know. And they were brilliant, and they stayed together for the last 25 years. They have been the best friends. They're the best company I ever had. Anyway, come and see Mary Lou's Mass. Thank you, love.